Let's bring in Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who also sometimes travels to Texas. Senator, great to see you. You were the first one to call for a travel ban to China before anyone really knew what this virus was, because China was not being transparent. They still aren't. Now, South Africa picks up the phone, calls 1-800-WORLD, and says, I have a variant here you guys should pay attention to. We immediately have a travel ban on them. Why do you think it's a bad idea?
Well, what President Biden did over the weekend is a typical half measure that reflects the incompetence of this administration. If you want to implement a travel ban, it needs to go into effect immediately. Exactly. That's what most European nations did that implemented that travel ban. If you don't want to implement a travel ban because you think the virus is already here or that it's counterproductive, then you shouldn't do so. But this is yet another incompetent half measure. As you said, Brian, last January, when the Democrats were wasting the American people's time with the impeachment trial of President Trump, I was trying to sound the alarm about this virus. I was calling for President Trump to stop travel immediately from China to the United States. After about a week, President Trump did so. And I remember then that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris denounced it as xenophobic and racist, just like they called subsequent travel bans on other countries racist as well. The hypocrisy here is amazing, but it's very typical of what you get from this incompetent administration.
You know, and to your point, if you're going to do a travel ban, do it quickly. Dr. Fauci on Wednesday, when the travel bans went into effect around the world in a number of countries, he said, yeah, that's something we're going to think about. It wasn't for 5 days until we, the United States, actually did it. Although now the WHO is saying don't impose travel bans just because. But ultimately, you can blame Tony Fauci for this, because if you're going to do it fast.
Yeah, Steve, the lesson of this pandemic, which, as I said last January, at the beginning of this pandemic, is that you need to move early and you need to move fast if you want to implement these measures. That if you wait until every bit of evidence is in, you will have waited too long. As Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, is it possible that this new variant is already in the United States? Yes, it is possible. It's in other places like Portugal or the United Kingdom. However, there's a difference between having a few people exposed to it and having plane loads of people landing from Wuhan, as the Democrats would have had early last year. But this is just, again, another example of the astonishing hypocrisy of the Democrats regarding this virus.
Yeah, Dr. Fauci is saying, go get your booster shot. The people who have gotten this virus, they're reporting sore muscles, they're tired for a day or two, a slight cough, did not lose taste or smell. So that's good news. Let's talk about Dr. Fauci, because Ted Cruz and Rand Paul have been very critical of him. They want him prosecuted because they say he lied to Congress. Dr. Fauci says, you criticize me, you're criticizing science. He said that again over the weekend. Listen to this.
Anybody who's looking at this carefully realizes that there's a distinct anti-science flavor to this. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. But if they get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci, well, people could recognize there's a person there, so it's easy to criticize. But they're really criticizing science, because I represent science. That's dangerous.
Senator Cruz told the Attorney General you should be prosecuted.
Yeah. I have to laugh at that. I should be prosecuted. What happened on January 6th, Senator?
What's your reaction to that, bringing up January 6th and then laughing at being prosecuted after they say he lied to Congress, which is illegal?
Well, so first off, no bureaucrat like Tony Fauci should be engaged in a partisan battle back and forth with an elected member of the United States Senate. Ted Cruz, like 99 other senators, represent the people who elected him. That bureaucrat like Tony Fauci works for those people. Second, Tony Fauci lied to Congress, and he should be investigated. He repeatedly said that his agency did not fund dangerous and risky gain-of-function research in those Wuhan labs, which almost certainly was the origin of this virus. He said it repeatedly to Congress. His agency just admitted a few weeks ago that, yes, they did, in fact, fund gain-of-function research. So there's a lie there. It's either Tony Fauci lying to Congress or his agency, after months of stonewalling, writing a letter to Congress and admitting it. I suspect it's Tony Fauci lying on the spot in his testimony to Congress. He put the American people at risk by funding this dangerous research, which was happening under the Obama administration, which he thought he knew better than the people's elected representatives. It's just another example of how these bureaucrats think that they are the science, that they represent the epitome of knowledge, and those grubby politicians like the President of the United States and United States senators and representatives have no business telling them what to do. That's not the way our democracy functions.
And Senator, think about this. The ego involved when someone says, I represent science. Science is a moving target. It takes in constant data. They're constantly changing. If you challenge his hypothesis, I'm challenging science? No. What if another scientist, or is another scientist allowed to challenge another scientist on different theories? His theory, if you challenge it, you don't like science. And I personally feel that, and if you don't agree, it's fine, but for now on, these scientists have to be with an economist and a psychologist, because when they make these absolute decrees, the ripple effect it does to people, their jobs, their livelihoods, the economics of a nation, those 7 nations in Africa aren't the richest nations in the world. They really have to wonder if they should have been transparent. If you're going to ban people from coming from their countries in 2 days from when they be transparent, which we asked China to do when they weren't.
Yeah, I mean, his preening self-regard is just incredible. And even if you agree with his scientific interpretation, the idea that Tony Fauci remains a credible and impartial messenger for the Biden administration to speak to the country is preposterous. But, Brian, you get to a deeper and important point about these bureaucrats. Is a so-called expert like Tony Fauci becomes an expert by spending his entire life studying a very narrow slice of knowledge. In his case, infectious diseases. He knows nothing about the economy. He knows nothing about psychology. He knows nothing about the way most Americans have to live and struggle to make ends meet in this economy. That's why you don't let an expert make decisions like this for the American people. We have elected representatives who take into account the expert advice from all the people who study these problems and then try to balance all of those competing interests.
Senator, today is Cyber Monday. Millions of Americans are going to shop online. I'm sure as soon as you're done with this interview, you're going to get out your phone and do some Christmas shopping.
I think he's got you in the grab bag.
That's great. $20 limit like last year. But Senator, you know, the reason the president this afternoon is going to talk about the supply chain is now, as people are shopping, they're worried they're not going to get their Christmas gifts. And now there's news out of California that apparently pharmacies are having trouble getting medical devices, and it's hard for them to not only get medicine, but things like walkers and canes and wheelchairs and crutches and syringes and needles and things like that. I was in New Jersey at my pharmacy trying to pick up a prescription on Saturday, and there was a sign that said the pharmacy was closed. And I asked the manager, I said, what's the deal? And he said, we'll try to be open tomorrow if we can find a pharmacist who wants to work.
Well, we'll see. First off, when I get off set here, the first thing I'm going to do is go buy Brian Kilmeade's new book for everyone in my family to help contribute to our growing economy.
Thank you very much.
Best Christmas gift you can get for Christmas gift you can get for anyone. I just want to point out though that this record inflation and these supply chain shortages and labor shortages that we've experienced this year didn't happen during the early days of this pandemic.
No.
This pandemic has been with us now for 2 years. The record inflation and the supply chain shortages have only happened under the Biden administration, and they're a result of the Biden administration's policies. Look, I hope Santa brings every child in America exactly what he or she wants. But when you're talking about things like prescription drugs and pharmaceutical supplies and medical supplies, it's not a matter of kids getting Christmas gifts. It's a matter of life and death. And that's just another reminder that over the last 40 years, we have spent way too much of our manufacturing capacity to China. We need to bring it back to the United States so that we have the ability to make the goods that our people depend on. We're talking about basic ingredients for drugs that are life-saving.
Can I just say that's leadership? That would be a leadership moment for him, not to react to supply chain problems. He's going to call a press conference today at 3:45 to talk about supply chain. Leadership is that. Bring our chip makers home. Well, over the course of the next 3 years, manufacturers got to come. This is how we're going to do it. Not just rhetoric. The plan going forward. That's what the American people want. A plan going forward, not reacting to poll numbers.
Yeah, Brian, that's exactly right. A lot of these things can be solved relatively easily with presidential leadership, whether it's cutting-edge technology like advanced semiconductors or old-fashioned goods that are still essential to our lives, like ibuprofen and acetaminophen, things that we don't produce in this country anymore. If you said, I've got 4 years, here's my plan to bring some of that manufacturing ability back to the United States, this is what my administration is going to do.
Sure.
We're going to make it easy for companies to open new factories and hire new workers here, then we'd be able to deliver on that vital interest for the American people.
Just remember, 2 years ago, we couldn't get the good masks because they were all made in China along with the fabric to make them.
And gas prices are going through the roof. Good thing Santa doesn't need gasoline for his sleigh, right?
Just
He's got Rudolph.
reindeer food.
That's right.
Bale of hay.
Yeah, if you watch Elf, isn't it by good motivation, happy thoughts? Couldn't that fuel the sleigh in Elf? Do you remember?
We did just
Happy
watch it.
thoughts are always
Remember it
helpful.
crashed in Central Park
Yes,
because people
yes.
were not giving up on the Christmas?
Not
That's
an
right.
actual fact-based movie.
Oh, I didn't know. It's hard to know the difference.
Hey, Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Senator.